It ain't just wide open, it's WFO.
Hey, this is Jeff Rice, Diepenhock from up by Savannah, Georgia. I just wanted to let you guys know that WFO rules.
Joe, this is Jay Bird, truck driver from Big Bear, California.
WFO rocks.
Oh, don't forget, WFO rules the airwaves.
WFO!
Joining us now, yes, our parade of 2018 Lucas Oil champions continues. We didn't get them all in 2018 by design. We got to keep you something here. In January of 2019, we're talking a little Lucas Oil Super Comp action. Joining us now, the champ, a first-time champ from 2018, Steve Williams. Steve, congratulations.
Oh, thanks a lot, Joe. I'll tell you, it's been a dream come true for me. I think most sportsmen, your goal is to win championships, and whether it's division or national. I mean, it's always nice to win races, but to finally, win that championship meant a lot to me. And, we didn't do it the easy way, but I'm thrilled to death.
Now, you have had several. First of all, everybody knows that knows the Lucas Oil Series, that you are an unbelievable index racer. You're a very solid racer. You win a lot of races. You win a lot of rounds. You're a terror out there on the West Coast. You've been close to the championship enough times that it was kind of a heartbreaking thing. This was on your mind, getting over the hump for the championship.
Yeah, through the years, I think my first real opportunity might have been 98 or 99, and then 2003 I had a really close opportunity. In fact, I lost, I think, in the fifth round, and I think Jack Beckman ended up winning that year. And so, there's different periods of time when you're in a position to win, and then a couple years ago, I had to go to the fifth or sixth round, and I won the first division race, and then gave it back by a couple foul, I think the second or third round, and ended up finishing third. So, I've been in that position, and I think this year, it was just, I knew I had to go a lot of rounds in Vegas, and unfortunately, I came up a couple rounds short of winning the race in Vegas. Otherwise, I think, I probably would have saved myself a lot of anguish there at Pomona.
Yes, I want to talk about that, because to me, that's the interesting moments. If we had national television, which we do have national television, but if we had the budget to have a camera on you throughout the day like they would in any other sport, it was a nerve-wracking moment, I'm sure. But let's talk about what got you to the point of being in position to possibly win the Lucas Oil Championship out there at the Auto Club Finals, which was a very strong and solid season. When you started 2018, was it the goal to win the championship? Like in years past, you are a West Coast guy, and you run that West Coast schedule that so many others do. Tell me about your mind frame going into the 2018 season.
Well, honestly, I think Alan said it best. I did not start as strong. In 16, I started first three national events. I won Pomona, and then runner-up in Phoenix and Vegas. And I had a really strong start. This year was the opposite. I think I lost first round and second round, and maybe second round in Vegas. So, and then I had a little bit of time where work kind of interfered. And then we went to Sonoma, and I won the points race at Sonoma. And then we runner-up at the national event at Seattle. And then I wasn't able to go to Indy this year, which actually kind of turned out to be a blessing. And they ended up with a double points race up at Earlsville or at Great Bend. And I like going to Dallas. So, for us, it was go to Great Bend and then drop down to Dallas. And we had a good outing, I think, semi'd at Great Bend, and then went to Dallas at the National and runnered up there. And then I think went 4 or 5 rounds at the National in Vegas, and then semifinaled again at Vegas. So it was kind of like, in I think 5 races there, we were either semi or runnering up at the end of the year, which I think that's really what kind of pushed us to the top.
So then let's move to the Auto Club Finals, and Mark Graham has got a shot. And it's a long shot, but he's got a shot, and he's doing it, and it's going, and it's happening, and he's going through the days, winning first round, second round. How are you handling it? It's a tough situation not being in control.
Yeah, both Mark and Bradley had shots there, and I think Bradley lost early. And then, Mark was driving well, and you could just see that, his car is fairly similar to my car. It's a pretty fast car. And, he'd not been at Pomona before. So honestly, my hat's off to him to show up at a brand new racetrack you've never raced at, and start going rounds and know that you have to go to the final. Kind of the same predicament I was in the division race the week before. And, and by strange coincidence, I raced Tony Elm first round, and he packaged me out. I think he was, 006, 91 and some change on the brakes. And it came right down to it. We were at the finish line, and, Mark and Tony were racing, and, you never like to root against anybody. And so I was just kind of standing there with my wife and, a couple of friends, and we were at the fence, and, Tony just did exactly what he did to me. I mean, he just pretty much packaged Mark out, and Mark had a good light and he was there. But, I just looked up and Tony's win light came on, and my wife turned around and said, "That's it. You're the champ." And I mean, it was just like a huge weight off my shoulders. Because all weekend, you're just standing around waiting. You feel so helpless. And, I went over and met Tony for the first time, and, great guy. And, he had a great day. And, I think he runnered up. I was kind of hoping he'd win the race because, he certainly drove well enough that weekend. But it was surreal. And then, of course, you're panicking because the very next day you've got to be at the banquet. So I had to go get a tuxedo, and my wife and daughter had to get dresses. None of us prepared for it because you don't want to jinx yourself.
Right. Right. So true, Steve. So true. Now, speaking of that, I want to hear about, you're standing down there on the finish line, and, being at a race is fun. You got all this pressure on you, but how are the other racers treating you, knowing that you've got this on your head?
There's right at the end of Pomona, there's kind of the racers grandstands, and, all the people that have stuck around and lost and whatnot, all the people I've raced with for years are there. And I kind of felt like the field goal kicker at the end of the day, when they know it's coming down to that last kick, because I'm standing at the fence and nobody would come and talk to me. They knew that there was a lot on the line. And, honestly, the cool part was after my wife jumped in my arms and hugged me, we're happy. I turned around and, the very first person, coming out of the stands, and a lot of the guys that I raced with, people like, Rick Beckstrom and Larry Scarth. But the very first guy, Chad Langdon, who's got is struggling with a health issue right now. He's the very first one to give me a big hug. And, it's just kind of neat, all the guys that you race with and compete with. And next thing you know, there's about 20 or 30 of us there kind of having a little separate celebration. And it was really special because it kind of shows you, the guys have a lot of respect for that I have a lot of respect for. And they knew how much it meant to me. So it was kind of extra special. Got to celebrate it with, the guys I've raced with for 20 years, and we've butt heads on the racetrack, but we're good friends also, once we get off the track.
That is
awesome.
Honestly,
I'll tell you, Joe, I've had such great friends like, Mark, Mike Furterer through the years. He's been a great friend of mine, and Tommy Phillips. And, but in this case, Gary Stinnett, who was on the phone when we were in Vegas, he's won championships, and he basically said, "Williams, you've been here before. Why don't you just get it done?" And he kind of gave me encouragement through the weekend, would call me in between rounds. So it's pretty special to have friends that support you. And, I'm sure everybody that's listening knows what I'm talking about. The sport has a strange way of giving back. It gives you friendships that last a lifetime. So.
That is awesome. And yeah, Gary, he's been there before himself, and great success. And it's just funny to hear you talk about like this little friend group you got, and they're all like great racers, Federer and others. These guys are killers, and you're living up to that billing as well, Steve. This is your first championship, but multiple top fives and multiple wins, Super Gas, Super Comp. I think it is a great deal that you were able to go out there and get the championship done. If this was a monkey on your back, you've gotten it off, which is great. I do want to bend your ear a little bit, though. You and I have had some good off-air staging lanes conversations about index racing. And it's one of my personal, I don't want to call it a goal necessarily, but I really believe that this style of racing is underappreciated and misunderstood by the majority of the fans out there. And so I put a lot of effort into trying to do my best to take the John Force fan who's there to see a 330-mile-per-hour funny car and explain that this is really cool. You just got to invest a little bit into it and to understanding. And then all of a sudden, the picture will open up and you will realize that you got to watch this stuff. And you have made some really good points over the years, like this is not – you're not necessarily doing this because you couldn't be running Comp Eliminator or Pro Stock. You're doing this because it is one of the most challenging motorsports on the planet.
Yeah, I mean, there is no doubt. If you look at the last 10 years or so, and even in the professional categories, a lot of the professional drivers that are the sharpest racers, a lot of them have come out of, the sportsman category. And in a lot of cases, guys like Sean Langdon and, Eric Enders and Pro Stock. I mean, everybody's kind of hones their skills, but the competition in the index racing is so tough. And one of the things that I really think is underappreciated, Joe, is that where else can you have, in my case, a 63-year-old guy competing against people that are 20, people that are 25, 30, 35, 40. In other words, you can still be competitive. And of course, in this case, win the world championship at any age if you keep your skills up. And it's the type of racing that you just don't see that. You certainly don't see it in stick and ball sports, and you don't see it, in other forms of motorsports. Usually they end up like in the silver hair category. So I think that goes unnoticed. And then second of all, you can compete with, I've been packaged up by cars that run 890 at 140 miles an hour, and I've been beat by cars that run 890 at 190. And so there's room for everybody. There's all different styles. I don't think most fans really realize it's almost a Texas Hold'em style of racing. And it is clearly about reaction time and consistency on the starting line, but it's being able to dial specific types of whether you're holding 700s or 5 or 300s or 2, or whether you're dialing honest. And so once you really kind of study the index racing, it takes on a whole new flavor.
You mentioned Texas Hold'em, and I have, we all have little projects that we work on in our mind that may or may not ever happen. And I pitched it to a couple of people, but I always thought if a bunch of guys and girls sitting around a table looking at cards can somehow be made interesting, this style of racing should definitely be able to be made interesting. And so what is the component that allowed cards to be interesting? And the answer is we revealed what their hands are to the television audience. And then it's like, oh, this guy's got nothing, and he's trying to go against somebody who's got something, and can he bluff him, and what's he going to do, and what's going to happen, and that. And I always thought that if we did a TV show with like post-production with in-car cameras that showed you what was happening as the cars were going down the racetrack, and Steve's 00, and this guy's 20, and so he's going to catch him, I think we could show a whole nother side of the sport. I know that would take budget and be a great challenge and require production and all of that, but there is something there with this style of racing. We just got to uncover it.
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, if the fans could actually see inside the cars, it's pretty amazing. When you think about it, sometimes you're taking the stride by 4 or 5 thousandths of a second, the last 100 feet of the racetrack, and then there's times where, you know, you're showing that you're taking the stripe, and at the last second, you move backwards and get behind your competition, and they don't react. And you know, because of various things that you learn through the years that you're breaking out. And, you know, so, I mean, if they actually could see what happens down there, I think it'd be a lot more entertaining for them. I think that the art is probably not well understood by, you know, the more casual drag racing fan.
Yeah. With a definite understatement there, but we're working hard, and I appreciate you giving me pointers and just things to talk about, over the course of a season to try. If we can get 5 people more interested at every event, man, that's a good thing to come down to see the cars to understand what a big deal is it. Let me ask you, Steve. People hear 4,000, 5,000. So when you are going out there and you've got a better light, or you feel like you've got a better light, and you're going to take the stripe, but you want to make it tight. How tight can you make it in terms of time on a consistent basis? Like, what is is it 5 thou? Is it 3 thou? Is it a hundredth? Is there a number that is your number you feel comfortable taking, and that you can put it on this number on a regular basis?
Yeah. It's, for me personally, it's about 7 or 8 thou. I could take 3 or 4 thou, and so can a lot of other guys, but when you do that, you will give it back once in a while at the worst possible time by a couple thou. So there's just times where usually if you, for me personally, if I try to set up 7 or 8 thousandths, if I make it a little too close, I'm still going to be 3 or 4 thousandths in front. So, you're down there trying to take, somewhere close to about, 12 to 14 inches in that range.
Yeah.
Okay. And, you're going 190. So, and sometimes the guy you're racing is, you don't know, that's why it's so important to know the speed of everybody that you race, because, obviously if they're going 160, that's like trying to stop with your front end in front of somebody by 12 inches when you're going 30 miles an hour to dead stop. Right. So
yes.
It's a lot, it gets a little bit easier if a car is running 180, 185 and you're running 190. And then it also depends on, a lot of times most people won't give you a clean wheel. So right about the time that you are trying to take the stripe, they're squeezing the brake pedal, which makes it harder. And, you can end up taking, more than you want and break out. So it's, there's a lot of gamesmanship, as I'm sure, as you know. And I think I would say that for fans, standing down at the finish line sometime right at the stripe and just watch the Super Series categories, you'll be amazed at some of the cars that run 185 or 90, but they're taking the wind light going 155 or 160, which they're killing 25, 30 miles an hour the last, 100 feet of the racetrack.
And then you've got guys, and I'm looking at the points right now, and it's just, I'm marveling at the top 6 in points separated by 40 points. Don Nichols, Coy Collier, Mark Graham, Mike Robolato, Chris Gerritsen. You got Gerritsen doing the reverse throttle stop thing. So you just don't know what you're going to get. You got to be very flexible.
Yeah. And I mean, Don, I misspoke earlier, but it was Don Nichols and both Mark Graham. Neither one of them had been at Pomona, and both had a really good chance at the championship. And, at the beginning of the race, I went over to them and just shook their hand and said, hey, good luck. And, let's just see how the cards play out. And I think, both of them realized, Pomona's a little bit shorter racetrack. So, when you get to the finish line, you got to pay attention, because that finish line comes up fast. So, but those guys, just think about it. You race all year long, and, championships decided on the very last, one round decides the championship at the last race of the year. That tells you how close it all is. And I think when it all came down to it, it was just my year, and it worked out. And, those guys are both great. Everybody that finishes, in the top 50 even on any given year. I think last year I probably finished, maybe somewhere in the 30s or so. And the year before I finished number 3. So it's so tough, and people get on a roll that, you can bounce around. Sometimes you're in the top 10, and then sometimes you're barely making the top 50. So there's just so many good racers, both guys and girls, and of all ages. You look at that top 10, and it's represented pretty well by a wide spectrum of people, but great racers.
Great stuff. Looking at 50th, you mentioned, Dave Crawford finished 50th, just ahead of Tanner Theobald and behind Tom Bayer, who is a driving instructor. So, yes, it is
There you go.
so true.
I mean, it's unbelievable, and I laugh about it because, I mean, if people really understood the degree of skill that it takes, in these categories, to your point, and, and these cars, just because you have a fast car doesn't mean it makes it easy. They have a mind of their own. Every car has its own, it's kind of a little DNA, right? And while it might be faster, it has some inconsistencies and some challenges in some other areas that cars that run 170 don't have. And so it all kind of washes out in the end, but, ultimately it's the person behind the wheel that makes or breaks either winning races or championships.
Yeah, so true. And it can't be lost that you guys are going 180 to 190 miles per hour, some of you. And that is fast, even in our modern world where, we got pro mod cars and we got these amazing cars that are doing amazing things. There's no circumstance where 180 miles per hour is slow and manageable. And the idea you're trying to cut it down to a couple of 12 inches at 180 is unbelievable. Yeah. Steve, congratulations on your championship. Now, earlier this year, we had a conversation on the return road. I believe it was when Rampy won his 100th victory, David Rampy, if I am correct. Am I correct about that?
That's correct.
What were you going what were you going to say about David Rampy? Tell us what Steve Williams, Lucas Oil's Super Comp World Champion, but also friend of the sport with K&N, so many great things, so many racers over the years, sponsored by K&N. The audience needs to know we were going to do something. Steve was going to say a few words about David's victory, and then all the time basically got removed because of some things behind the scenes. We had to go with the final rounds and we didn't get to do it. I wanted to know what you were going to say about David, because I am, just blown away by the guy's, how humble he is with the amount of skill, talent, and ability he has. And the guy's a juggernaut. He's one of the greatest of all time. We saw his amazing milestone. And, and what do you think?
First of all, I got a chance to be there, while you were interviewing David, and I know him really well. And of course, raced against him 20 years ago when he was racing in the super categories. I mean, I've raced against him in both Super Comp and Super Gas. And you're right. I mean, you cannot get a more humble guy when you think about all that he's accomplished. And the fact is, he is just a great friend, but an unbelievable racer. And I think it was just pretty special. First of all, I'm excited because I've won the championship, but to get to see him win, that 100th race and to be there on the return line, I mean, that was just awesome. And it wouldn't happen without K&N. I mean, obviously, the company has been a big part of my life for, pretty close to 25 years. And, I can't say enough. It's a company that invests back into the sports, not only at the professional level. I mean, we've certainly supported Pro Stock through the years, but at the sportsman level, I mean, we sponsored, David Rampy, sponsored Fletcher, Mike Furter, the list goes on. Tommy Phillips, there are, Gary Stinnett, and then, of course, the contingency program. I'm a big supporter of NHRA's contingency program, and so is K&N. And I think that to be able to be in a position, what I would have said, I would have thanked all the fans because, of course, it's my home racetrack. I finally got over the hump. You were there when I won Pomona, which was kind of we'd won it at racetracks and other places, but for some reason Pomona escaped me. And then, to be able to get Pomona 3 times in a row was pretty special also. And so in front of those fans, I think I would have just thanked them for, the support through the years and support of K&N and, my wife and, of course, Travis and everybody that helps me. I wouldn't be able to race if it wasn't for somebody taking my stuff to the races with, full-time job. And I haven't, I've driven my own stuff too. So it's not like it's always been like that. So that's probably, I think, more gratitude and being thankful for the opportunity I've been given, not only by the company, but been blessed to have a lot of good friends and people helping me go racing. That's what I would have said.
Well, that is great. And fortunately, we here are able to create our own time on WFO to go back and, different audience, different place, different time. But the sentiment, I wanted to get it eventually, and we did. So thank you for that. Thank you for that.
Especially my wife and daughter, as you know, my wife Janet, but Shelby, she turned 16 in February, and we've already got a stock eliminator car, and she's going to start bracket racing. So she was in the juniors, and I wasn't sure she was going to take it up, but about 6 months ago when she started wanting to go back to the races, and she's like, Dad, I really would like to race, but I want to race a real car. So she's going to be racing a stock eliminator car here probably real soon in the next year. So I think it's a Williams tradition. I think we're stuck in drag racing for a while, so hopefully you'll get to talk to me more, and maybe next time will be my daughter's first win.
There you go. Now, well, thank goodness for that, though. Thank goodness for that, because, look, in the end, the cars are cool, and they're really amazing machines, but it is this weird community of people that are these, driven, hardworking, talented, and a little crazy in many ways, all coming together around the country in their own divisions, in their own tracks, even the bracket racers that are part of it all, the car people that make it what it is. And so, yes, we need young people, we need fresh blood, we need new ideas, new people, new personalities, and you're doing your part.
That's awesome. No, it is a great sport.
That is a fact. Steve, I want to wish you congratulations. Thank you for being part of our WFO Radio Parade of Champions, your 2018 Lucas Oil Series Championship. Sometimes they come in bunches, Steve. You never know. Get out there again. 2019. What's your plan? What's your schedule? Same as last year? Start off and just hammer down.
Yeah, it is. We'll start out at Pomona and Phoenix and Vegas. And, honestly, I've got a really good super gas car, and there's been times where I've been close and in that car also. So it wouldn't surprise me if we have a good, strong year in super gas or in super comp again. But the cars are good, and I feel like I'm still driving well. So, yeah, I'm excited about 2019.
Now,
and it was great talking to you.
Now, real final thought. I remember you took order of a new car, but then didn't run it. Are you going to? Are you going to swap out? What are you going to do with this championship car? What's up with that?
I have it. I am running that. I always like to get a car completely finished and go to the racetrack and test it. And it's kind of like I guess maybe everybody has that favorite fishing rod or favorite set of golf clubs, and I never like to just sell a car and then get into a brand new car without having driven it. So I've tested the brand new Miller car, and it's an awesome car. And so I expect to be driving it at Pomona this year. So, yep, I'll have a brand new car.
Wow.
And same motor, trans, and everything. But, it took me a little longer than normal. Work-wise, I've been kind of busy. But we finally got it done, and it looks great. And I'm anxious to give it a whirl.
There you go. And then the championship car is sitting back there in the shop going, hey, man, what did I do?
That's it. It is definitely sitting there, but I've sat and driven, and I haven't gone down the racetrack yet, but very comfortable in the new Miller car, and those guys do great work, and I'm very pleased with it. So I expect that I'll be retiring the championship car.
There you go. Steve, congratulations once again. Thank you for coming on our podcast. I really appreciate it.
I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Steve Williams with us here on WFO Radio NHRA Nitro, the WFO podcast for short. And thanks to Steve for coming on the show. How about he's standing on the finish line just watching the racing, and the guy that beat him is the guy that makes him the championship, Tony Helms. Those are the stories. Those are the stories. And I referenced in the interview, I'm talking to Steve, and I'm thinking to myself, right, the camera, like in this, we have so many stories. Is what I'm getting at. We have so many stories that we could be following. They could have had the camera in his mug, the reaction shot. You remember the Antron Brown reaction shot? Well, a championship is a championship, and I'm telling you, when Steve wins the championship, it's just as meaningful as when Antron wins that championship back in, 2010? And so, think about that. From 1 minute, you're a racer. The next minute, you're a champion. And that's what he got to experience. And, of course, everybody that's standing around him not wanting to talk to him like he is a pitcher in a no-hitter or something like that. He referenced the kicker in a football game. Then they all want to come over. It's safe. It's safe. And I feel that way too. I feel that. And I'm always like, I don't want to interact with anybody when the pressure is on, even though the reality is that it has nothing to do with it. The cosmos doesn't care who you just talk to, I think.
This is WFO Radio.